Backstretch Banter on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. I'm your host, Chris Childers. Coming off New Hampshire this past weekend, we are now heading to my town. I'm about a couple miles away from the Nashville Super Speedway. So Nashville is the point of attention this weekend. Momentum for RFK in some perspectives, maybe not a great weekend in other perspectives last week, but Chris Buescher getting in the top five certainly helps the playoff push. So we got a lot to talk about today. And again, if you're new to our show, what we love about what we do on Backstretch Banter, it's not just, hey, get on, talk to a driver, get kind of the surface level of what it takes for a NASCAR team to compete on Sundays. We go inside. We go in depth. We talk to tire changers, tech guys, crew chiefs, whatever. I mean, we are literally covering all bases of the team because that's what people need to realize. There are so many different people that make this stuff go, and there's so many moving parts that make it go. And I think that getting to really understand it is the beauty of what we do on Backstretch Banter. So let's say hello right now to Philip Wicker. He's a senior network engineer for RFK. He's an IT guy. He's the guy that makes all the fancy tech stuff go on Sundays and throughout the race weekend. And I'll tell you what, man, for anybody that's ever been to a race and has had any sort of access to the grid or be able to walk the pit, it is amazing how much technology goes on. So let's get into it. Philip, it's good to see you, man. How are you? So let's just start right there. How would you describe the importance of IT, of computers, of technology for a team on race day?
It's very important, especially nowadays. The industry has gotten to where it's so tech driven that if you didn't have it, you would be in a lot of trouble. Just the way that the communications, the data that is available to our engineers and our crew chiefs and everybody, you have to have it. It's a must.
I would assume so. I mean, there are so many different nuances. There's so many different little technology things you can pick up. If you ever sit behind a crew chief in a pit box, and I recommend that for anybody that has the ability to get access to that, because it's so wild to kind of look at everything, but you see how the cars are charted out on this different software. Give us an idea of the software that is being used on race day that, you know, maybe the average race fan doesn't have access to. Maybe they do in certain, respects with iRacing and stuff like that. But give us an idea of what you guys are utilizing.
Sure, yeah. So Ford provides us with a lot of tools, a lot of timing and scoring tools. We've got a few of our own that provide, some of that critical data. SMT is a big one. All the teams have access to the SMT platform, which is all like the analytical data. That's when you see like the animation of all the cars going around the track. Very critical piece to our engineers and the crew chiefs, because that's giving them all the data between the throttle sensors, steering, braking, all that kind of stuff. And the list goes on. We could go on as far as what other kind of software you see, but mainly like if you had the opportunity to be on the pit box, those would be some of those things that you're seeing.
They're really kind of amazing. And if for anybody that can, just kind of Google a picture of what it looks like to be behind a crew chief, it is amazing. Because I got to imagine, NASCAR back in the day was very basic, very simple, didn't have, these kind of tools. But now
manual stopwatches.
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
Exactly.
Kind of but nowadays, it is incredible the amount of data, the amount of detail that it goes in to a race, that goes into what a team does. So it really is incredible. And you guys set it up. You guys make sure it works. You guys make sure that it's efficient.
Right.
Give me an idea of we'll get through. Let's start with the week. Let's start on Monday. After race day, you're back home, you're back in the shop.
Yep.
What needs to be set up? Let's use Nashville, for example. Let's pretend it's Monday. Yeah. Nashville's on Sunday. What's the week look like for IT?
So on Mondays, it's a big debrief day. And, there's a group of us, and we all share some of the role of the travel. We do have one person that does travel most of the time. So as the weekend has progressed, we do collect a lot of notes, whether it be issues or whatever that would be relevant in our debrief. And that's a debrief with the competition directors, the engineers. Maybe they had some issues that they, didn't get a chance to tell us about when we were at the track. Depending on how far away the race was, you might not get back to your hauler in the shop to where you might need to fix things and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But it's mostly a debrief day, and we spend some time in meetings going, reading through the notes and that kind of thing, and just trying to understand, okay, what's coming down the pipe when the haulers pull in, do we have things that broke? Because in our industry, stuff gets broken a lot. We're exposed to, all the elements, whether it be the weather, and with everything, just going down the, back and forth across the country, it's wear and tear. So, a lot of times on Monday, it's like, hey, we've got a broken monitor on pit box. We need to make sure we've got a spare loaded for the following week.
A lot of detail, and that's the thing that I think can be frustrating for a lot of people, especially that aren't IT guys. You just want it to work, right? You just want it to work. You want it to be working.
Sometimes it doesn't even feel like an IT job a lot of times. I mean, you're using your IT skills, but especially race day, I mean, you are on your feet from the time the garage opens until you're closing the lift gate on the hauler. So it's a physically demanding job.
It's a different kind of IT job.
It is.
And certainly an athletic kind of IT job.
Yeah.
I would say, with all the being on your feet all day on Sunday certainly isn't for the faint of heart, but it's got to be done. It's got to be done. And I think that's kind of a cool way to use your IT skills.
It's great. I mean,
is to do it. How did you find this? I mean, you're a North Carolina guy. How did you? I mean, I don't know what you went to school for. I would imagine something around with your computers. But how did you venture into the NASCAR world and think that was an option for your skills?
It's kind of our IT director. We used to work together, and so he's been here at RFK for over 6 years, and he gradually moved into the director's position a few years ago, and he called me up, and he kind of caught me at a time where I was kind of ready for a change. And I grew up in Mooresville, and so I've been around racing. A lot of people and friends I knew worked in racing, but I never really tried to get into it. I just sort of had other opportunities that I was working in. So he kind of caught me at a good time, for him, and I decided to come over and get a taste of racing as a job.
Take that leap, and I bet it's addictive. I really do. I would assume that once you're a part of a team, and your job is essential to helping the team compete and win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that element? I mean, I'm sure you have other friends in IT, other friends in tech. I certainly have plenty of friends in tech. I think we all do. I mean, this is the world that we live in right now. Do any of them kind of like marvel at what you guys do, because you're helping compete? I mean, you guys are a part of this competition wheel.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I have like friends that are in tech that are very interested in what our day looks like versus theirs.
It's pretty cool.
And so it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of cool.
I think it's really cool. Have you noticed, like, what are the big differences you hear from those guys that have like normal tech jobs?
They seem to just be interested in what the heck you do in a day, and then sometimes it's hard because once you've immersed yourself in it and you're comfortable, it's kind of hard to think, what do we do? There's so much that goes into it, and it becomes like muscle memory. So, just kind of like what we're doing here, just sort of hitting the highlights of what it's like. What we do when we roll in on Friday for tech. What does Saturday look like for practice and qualifying, and what does that routine look like? And in the end, especially when you get to go to victory lane when we win, you're all in.
Yeah, I bet it's the ultimate payoff. I was gonna ask, I'm sure some of the IT stuff isn't glamorous, and again, we're talking right now to Philip Wicker, who works on that side of things. He is an engineer for RFK, a network engineer, senior network engineer, by the way. Let's not take away his fancy title. But it's amazing. Anytime you go to a track, how much tech is involved, from the car to what's going on in the pit box to analytics to a million different things. How many people are in your ear during a race weekend? Does the crew chief have any communication with you? Is, spotters, what's happening? Because there's a lot of spotters are using tech, crew chiefs are using tech. Who's communicating with you, and where are you going on race day? Because you said you're on your feet the entire time.
Sure, yeah. So the short answer is everyone.
Everyone.
It might not be everyone in one weekend.
If it's technical,
yeah,
you're gonna,
there might be a Wi-Fi issue on the spotter stand, and I might have to take a trip up there, and I'm just dealing with, TJ and Herm. There's been other instances where we're, in a practice qualifying situation, and when you're in those pit stalls, both teams are right there together, and so, it's not uncommon to have a crew chief or the engineer, come to you for a need. More times than not, though, it's the race engineer. They tend to segue that type of those types of requests, or if they need something, they're hitting us up on Teams, or they might text us if it's if a pit box is offline, they can't get a Teams message out and that kind of thing. Our race engineers are fairly tech savvy, and so they have a better way of conveying maybe what they think the technical issue is. And
sure.
And so, we typically are doing a little bit of behind the wall pit support, catching tires on the 17. So, if an issue comes up on the 6, or if there's multiple IT people there, you might have to run in that moment to get, to wherever you need to be to start, troubleshooting and triaging whatever the technical issue may be. Because, worst case scenario, if you have a pit box that goes offline, well then that's they're not getting any data. So that's a big deal. So when those are scenarios where you're sprinting.
How often can something happen? How often? I mean, I've been to many races where it seems like it's smooth, like things are going good and everything seems to be working. And when there is an issue, does the driver have any clue? Does the driver what's because I gotta believe all this stuff works hand in hand.
I think the driver, they do a pretty good job of shielding him from technical issues that are occurring outside of the car. As far as how often issues arise, it's a little bit random. Here we've had a couple, issues the past few weekends where it's okay, we got to have a smooth weekend, and so we're having to really hit the drawing board on correcting some issues that we've been running into. But it's the nature of just how the sport works. Everything, the entire network infrastructure beyond the race teams is a NASCAR provided network. They're having to pick that stuff up every week and move it to the next track. And so they've probably faced some of the same issues that the teams do, where their equipment gets, pretty banged up, especially on pit road. You get a lot of pit road guys, a lot of the network equipment that NASCAR is providing for us to be able to plug into. It's getting kicked around, and then when you have monsoons like we had at Wilkesboro,
oh gosh,
stuff's getting submerged in water. And
did you have anything you had to replace out of Wilkesboro? Because that was crazy. I haven't seen that much water at a track ever.
I feel like we had lost a monitor. We did okay on that one.
I bet a bunch of people had something though, because it was. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah.
That was. It was literally like.
Yeah. I mean, we
nuts.
Are typically pretty good. Like our pit crews, like when they see weather coming, they get the rain covers on pretty quick. I think for the Wilkesboro event, pit boxes weren't on the track that day, so everybody just kind of hid inside the haulers.
That was wild.
Yeah.
It was wild. It's one of those days. I think most people love being at the track on any given day. That's one I'm okay staying home.
Yeah.
It was wild. But Philip Wicker, our guest, senior network engineer for RFK. Let's take a break. We got more with Philip when we come back right here at Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. We're back here at Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90, Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. I'm your host, Chris Childers. We are going into Nashville this weekend. We got some awesome cars running in Nashville. The number 6 Consumer Cellular Ford Mustang is going to be driven by Brad Keselowski. Then we got the number 17 BuildSubmarines.com Ford Mustang with Chris Buescher behind the wheel. By the way, if you're going to be at the race, 11:15 Central Time on Sunday, Brad Keselowski is going to be in the fan zone doing a fan-facing question and answer with Consumer Cellular. So you're going to want to get out to that activation, go see Brad. Going to be really cool. I'll be there this weekend in my home of Nashville, Tennessee. Cannot wait to be a part of it. Philip is still with us. Philip Wicker, who is a senior network engineer from Mooresville, North Carolina for RFK. We've learned a lot about the IT side of NASCAR, what it takes to make things run, make it work. I want to know from your perspective, because something that really caught my eye at the beginning of the season was how some of these pit boxes have really gotten fancy, and there are a lot of video going on. RFK has video screens at both pit boxes, which I think really adds an element to the pit box, to the experience. What was your role in making sure that stuff looked good? Because it certainly looks good.
Yeah, we those pit boxes are fairly new, and so I had the opportunity to be a part of transitioning us off of our older pit boxes, which were pretty worn out, to these newer C-Tech boxes. And so it gave us a chance to kind of have a blank slate and kind of figure out, okay, what about the old boxes were that we didn't like, that we wanted to correct on these newer pit boxes. So we had, all sorts of options, and we had a lot of input that we brought in from the entire team. The car chiefs, the engineers. We wanted to make sure they were tailored to what was going to help provide them with the best possible setup for them. But just kind of looking at it from the outside, we went from having just maybe 8 display sources, whether it be like computer monitors or TVs. I think we're around 12 now. Up top, our various feeds consist of broadcast angles, whether it's in car, the main broadcast feed, weather radar, and then we can also provide just like a house view of timing and scoring for some of our VIP guests that sit on top of the box. Down below, it's a little more set up to where the crew can have visibility to track position, some of that timing and scoring. We have like our pit video systems that all sit down below. So it's a kind of a situation where everything, for no matter what your role is, you've got access to what you need on that pit box.
How invested are you guys as an IT team in the results every single weekend? I mean, I've talked to so many different people with this team from all different angles, whether it's a tire changer or the jackman or a crew chief or a spotter or whatever. I mean, we've had so many different members of the team to give us different kind of, aspects and different, sides of this business. From an IT side, how invested is this team with the results on the track every weekend?
At RFK, this IT department that I'm a part of, we are very invested in those results. Okay. My director, myself, and everyone else in our department, we're all race fans. I've been one since I was a little kid, and so is our IT director. So it means a lot to us to see our cars run good, and it means a lot to go to victory lane. We're celebrating just as much as the road crew is and the drivers, for those results.
Did you have any input at the end of the Kyle Larson, Chris Buescher 0.0001 second finish? I know that, crew chiefs were involved, but from an IT perspective, was there any, hey, Philip, what happened here kind of thing?
No, at that point, that type of data is solely out of our wheelhouse. That's there for the crew chiefs and the engineers to sort of digest. But for me personally, in that moment, I was just a fan, just thinking that Chris won there for about 30 seconds. So I hated to be.
We all did. Yeah. We all did.
Hated to be on the losing end of that, but yeah, that was out of our hands.
We certainly all celebrated accordingly in that moment, and it was a little weird to see how it went down. Philip Wicker, our guest, senior network engineer for RFK. It is really great to have him as a part of the program today. There's so much going on. Nashville this weekend, hoping for a great race, hoping for 1-2. I've said it all season, but fingers crossed we get it. It's happened before. So it would be great to see it this weekend in the Music City, and that race has been really well attended. People in Nashville put on a party. They really do. They kind of show out for anything that comes here, and I expect nothing less from their fourth visit or their fourth event in a row, having that race at the Nashville Super Speedway. So going to be fun. Philip, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for being on the program today, and you enjoy the race this weekend. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Philip Wicker. Again, this is what I love about the show. We go inside the team. There's so much more than just getting behind a fast car and racing. There is the tech element of it. There is the pit stop element of it. There is the spotter, the crew chief, the everything. I mean, there's so many layers. There's so many people doing different things right now back at the headquarters in North Carolina. And that's what I love about this show, is that we like to really teach you about what's going on and what these people are doing and how it impacts the race quality on Sunday. So awesome to speak with Philip Wicker. We got some really cool stuff coming up next. Speaking of tire changers, front tire changer for Chris Buescher for the 17, Jakob Prall is going to be with us. And this guy's got a really neat background and NASCAR story. So we'll learn about it. We'll find out about it when we come back right here, Sirius XM's Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. We're back here. It's Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, channel 90. We are talking about all angles of this team as we get ready for Nashville this week. We just had an IT guy on. Now we get a tire changer. That's what I love. I've said it a million times, but I got to stress it. I love this show because we don't just talk about the racing perspective from, this is where he finished. This is what happened stage 1, stage 2. We go into the nuances. And what's cool is we get to tell the stories of these guys that find their way to the race team and, not all traditional racing backgrounds. The guy we just had on was from Mooresville, North Carolina. The guy we're about to have on is an Ivy League dude who knew nothing about NASCAR. Let's talk to him right now. Jakob Prall is our guest, the front tire changer for the number 17 Ford Mustang for Chris Buescher. So, Jakob, it's good to talk to you, man. You're a football dude. You're an Ivy League guy. I'm just going to ask it open-ended, and I can't wait to hear the story, but I know you're not a lifelong race fan, so how did you end up here?
Well, first off, Chris, that's probably the best intro I've ever gotten my whole life, so I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yes.
My journey to racing started very recent, and I never thought I would have ended up here, honestly. Grew up in Ohio, went to Ivy League, graduated, COVID, found my way on a CFL team in Canada, and then found my way working down to North Carolina. It has not been a linear path by any means. I feel like I've really trusted God throughout the whole process, and my support system has been the reason why I'm here today, though, because I could not have done it without my family, without my now fiance, without my friends. I mean, my support system is top tier.
Who got you into it? Who is the person or persons that said NASCAR, you're a competitor, you're an athlete, there's a place that you can still compete, and compete you do? I mean, it is a critical job, what you do every single weekend.
Yeah.
Without you, the car won't have a tire. So that's pretty important, I would say. But who was it that said maybe NASCAR is how you scratch this itch?
Yeah, I actually knew someone at RFK, and after I had been released from the CFL, I'm kind of just in this no man's land. I'm living back in my parents' house. I'm 24, going on 25 years old, and without any really work experience. My parents were really proud that I was using my Ivy League degree to the fullest extent. No, they're very supportive of everything that I do. But I knew someone at RFK. He kind of pushed me to say, hey, at least come and just try it out. So I was able to shadow, and I was kind of in a spot in my life where I had nothing to lose. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll move down here and try this out. And luckily enough, through the tryouts, through learning a completely new sport, a completely new atmosphere, culture, everything like that. I was able to work the ranks and find myself onto a car starting for the 2023 season, and now here we are on the 17 on 2024. So I'm very lucky.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, it's going good. The team's having success. You finished top 5 last week. Nashville coming up this weekend. So certainly we'd love to see the car in victory lane, and it's been so close. It's been so close to being in victory lane, but I'm sure that payoff eventually is going to be just unbelievable. And I got to think it's coming. It's coming sooner than later. I say it every week, but watch the races. I mean, the 17 is competing every week, and I think for the long haul, for the playoff, this team's in a really good position. So let's go back to Brown. You're an Ivy League football player. You find your way in the Canadian Football League. You played for the Roughies, I think.
Yep.
Did you play for anybody else, or was it just the Saskatchewan Roughriders?
Just Saskatchewan.
Okay. So give me an idea of that world, because you're at Brown. The NFL is not an option at that point, but the CFL is a great league, lots of history. You and I talked off the air. The Rough Riders have an incredible fan base. So when you're there, you feel like you're playing big time football. And then you are. I personally love the Canadian Football League. I have a share of the Roughies behind me. So I think it's great. What was that like for you transitioning into that league and honestly learning the rule nuances? Did it take any time at all to learn, the motion before the snap and all that kind of stuff? The timing of it?
Yes, 100%. Learning the rules, there's a lot of nuances. There's
only 3 downs for people that don't know in Canadian football, and the goalposts are at the front of the end zone.
The waggle motion. I kind of shorten it up. CFL is basically if the offense had cheat codes in America. Because as a wide receiver, it just made everything easier. So transitioning to the CFL is like, wait, I just get to run full steam before the ball's even snapped. I was like, this is awesome. And that's where I was able to really find a niche up there, because it is weird being in the CFL. They only have so many spots for Americans up there. It's their league. They have a bunch of rules on how they adjust that to the starters and roster spots. So I was able to find a niche where I was just like, I was able to use my speed. I was able to go full speed and just run past everyone. So it was a lot of fun being up there. I thought that while being up there, you become this like superstar in Saskatchewan. It's weird. And
that's what I'm saying. It's a big deal.
It. I really did feel it. At the same time, I was, a day's trip away from my family. So it was this weird feeling where I felt like I was doing everything right from an athlete and my personal goal standpoint, but being away from my family and being away from my fiance was a huge toll, and it took a lot of mental energy, like thinking, is this the right path? Is this not the right path? And when I got cut, I felt like the world was just crumbling. I was like, what is going on? This is everything that I wanted to do. And then, 2 months later, it was like, holy crap, I'm so blessed that this happened, because it opened up another door, and that's all I can ask for is an opportunity. And that was the same when I was getting into the league. All I was asking for was an opportunity. And luckily I was able to get that and keep moving forward.
Well, it's good to talk to you. It's great to see you here with the 17 car, and great to see you continue to be able to compete in high-level athletics and do it with a NASCAR team is really awesome. I'm assuming you play slot receiver, just looking at you. Is that correct, slot?
Yep. I was a slot. I was kind of a hybrid slot, because I wasn't the little tiny shifty guy that was getting in a little spot, but I was able to hit some deep routes, hit some comebacks, hit some out routes. That kind of was my specialty, I guess you should say.
Yeah, sure. Well, it helped you get a professional football career for a while, which I think is awesome. How many people can say they played professional football, especially for a cool organization like the Rough Riders? And again, for people that don't know, it really is a special organization with a special spot in the community's heart there in Saskatchewan. This show is all about NASCAR, but it's also about getting to know the people on the team and getting to know their stories. I'm really fascinated about the CFL for a moment. And you just mentioned how the players that you played with, a certain amount of them have to be from Canada. What did you notice about player development? I mean, you played in America, you played in the Ivy League, so maybe not Alabama, but certainly you played high level football. What did you notice about those guys and the way they played the game? And do they play Canadian football rules at the high school level?
I'm not sure at the high school level, but I know the college level is very similar to what the CFL and there is. I honestly think similar to the NFL college, like it's just a 1 foot, 2 foot rule on inbounds. There's not much. There's weird points that you can get off of like punts or missed field goals, and you don't have to kick off the ball if you make a field goal or miss. I don't know. I'm starting to forget, but there's a bunch of weird rules. The Canadians themselves, I mean, you could tell that they were much more comfortable. Like when I was going into training camp, I was, you have 12 dudes on the field. The field is massive. It's 150 yards instead of the 120 for American. And so, yeah, it was a lot to get adjusted to. I realized I had a lot more room on the sidelines as well. So as a receiver, you love eating all that up. You run a comeback, you're like, oh, crap, I can keep going. So I really enjoyed learning it and adapting to it, but you could tell that there was a much more comfortable aspect for those Canadians.
The Ivy League education in NASCAR, how does it play? Do they respect? Do they give you crap for being so studious? And I mean, I would love to have one. And I could have had a master's. I am currently at Alabama getting a master's, but I got into Columbia. So just so you know,
that counts.
Just so you know, but how is that whole Brown NASCAR relationship?
Again, yeah, I think very unique situation. I could have never guessed that while being at Brown, where it's like, I'm going to take this education, I'm going to take it to NASCAR. Nothing against NASCAR.
Why not?
It's just a very unique situation.
Sure.
Again, part of it was me not knowing anything about NASCAR while at school. I love everything that has brought to this sport. I don't know if I have a competitive advantage for going to the school. I don't like to think I do. It's just I played football in college. It just happened to be at Brown University. I was very lucky to go there. And
was that super important though for mom and dad? Like, did you have other offers?
I did. Yeah. All FCS offers, but yeah, I had full ride offers, and Ivy League is not full ride, so it was a long-term decision for our family to be like, okay, what is the best decision to get school paid for right now, or maybe have just more opportunities in the future to be opened up. And Brown's whole thing is it's not a 4-year plan, it's a 40-year plan. And that's the biggest thing on going to these, Ivy League schools. I have a lot of issues with that. I think my biggest point is you go to an Ivy League school because it opens up more doors for you. It's not like I learned stuff at Brown University that you can't find online right now. It's more about the people and the people that are there, and that's where I was able to gain an advantage. And I feel like more of my doors were opened up because of that. So I think because of that situation at Brown and their football alumni association is unreal on how they help each other out. They're really well connected. So for me, finding myself into NASCAR, I might be a first from Brown, but I guess I can open up doors for anyone.
Making history.
Exactly. Yeah.
Making history. I think it's awesome. I do. And the Ivy League is such a unique place to play college football. You get such a unique collegiate environment compared to the FCS and Division I. All that kind of stuff. It's a completely different world. I'm with you though. I had a friend of mine who worked with me in the football world that went to Yale and played football at Yale, was a defensive back. And he said the schooling really isn't any different. It's Yale, it's Yale. So you're going to get a little bit more respect, but were the classes, if the education's the same, was the expectation in the classroom harder, or is it just, hey, you got into Brown, so you got into Brown?
No,
good for you.
That is the difference. Is you're at an Ivy League school, so the coaches expect you to be a Division I football player, and the teachers expect you to be an Ivy League student. Whereas in other schools, you get more credentials or more leniency if you are a full-time athlete at the school. So, yeah, I mean, school came first at the Ivy League. The whole season, honestly, is structured around the schooling in general. You're only allowed to take, you took 4 classes at Brown per semester, which is much less than other schools, as well as there's no credit hours, and it's an open curriculum. So from day one, you just take your classes that are either associated with your major or completely not related at all. I took a pirates class. I took a Egyptian archaeology class. So I was able to, because of the freedom that they give you, you're able to really find weird niches of classes, as well as you don't have to take those gen eds that a lot of schools demand, which I think definitely gives you a leg up on getting started earlier.
Let's take a break. We got more with Jakob. When we come back, let's get into the racing side of things. But hell, how many times do we get an Ivy League CFL football player in the chair that knew nothing about NASCAR? So kind of fun to pick his brain and learn his story. But we got more with him when we come back on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. It's Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. We're back here. It's Backstretch Banter on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, channel 90. Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. We are coming off of New Hampshire this past weekend. 28th place finish for Brad Keselowski, but a P5 for Chris Buescher. Crazy day, rainy day. One of those you just kind of get what you can. And for Buescher, it ended with a top 5. So you take that, and it certainly puts the 17 car in a good position as the season unfolds, as we get closer to the playoffs. I think that first race is coming up in Atlanta, not too far down the road in the playoffs. So good position for the 17. As we know, the 6 already locked in with the win earlier this year. Point standings right now, Brad at number 10, Chris number 13. And here we are going to Nashville. And again, fingers crossed we can be finishing 1 and number 2 this week across the finish line. And hopefully we can get one of these cars into victory lane. Consumer Cellular, the sponsor for the 6 this weekend, and buildsubmarines.com for the number 17. Jakob Prall, still our guest. He's hanging out. The front tire changer for the number 17 Ford Mustang, which again is buildsubmarines.com this weekend. This guy is an Ivy League educated former football player that knew nothing about NASCAR before he got to RFK. Now he's a part of a team. He's helping to win races. I'm sure his entire perspective of the sport has changed. Give me an idea of where you're at with NASCAR now. What does NASCAR mean to you now? How much do you feel that you know about it? Give me your comfort level with what you do for a living from a sport perspective now.
I mean, I'm all in on it. I love NASCAR, and I had the very general opinion that, NASCAR is just going around in circles before. And, that I really didn't watch it. Now that I'm in it, I'm like, oh, I get it. This is so competitive. There's the lap times, the pit stops, the strategies. My family's all in it. It's hilarious. Like, our conversations over the dinner table now are like talking about NASCAR. And I was like, if you were to tell us this 2 years ago, we'd be laughing our butts off.
Yeah.
And, I mean, something I didn't mention earlier is part of the reason I did pursue this is my fiance works in NASCAR.
Oh, she does?
Yep. So she got the job following her master's degree. Similar time, I got cut from the CFL, and we were doing long distance. She was in Florida. I was in Canada. I was actually closer to Russia than her. And but she... Yeah, I mean, that is part of the reason why I pursued it. I saw our relationship coming together, and it worked out. We're no longer doing long distance. We're together, but it is hilarious just how encompassing our whole family is on NASCAR, on watching it, on listening to the radios and stuff. We're all in. I love the sport. I really do. There's so many aspects that goes into it. I think pit stops remind me a lot of special teams with football. And I'm really, really, really blessed to be in the position I am today.
How long did it take you to get comfortable doing your job? I mean, it is fast paced. It is a lot. I mean, people hear tire changer, but tire changer is fast. It is fast.
Yeah.
It is athletic. It is quick. You have to do it in a time that most people are like, holy hell, how is that humanly possible? So it might not be the most complicated job in the world, but it is a difficult job. And I got to imagine practice to get comfortable. So give us a time frame on it.
Yeah, the time frame. So I actually, if you want a time frame, I got exact dates. On September 27th, I moved. September 27th, 2022, I moved to North Carolina to pursue this. October 27th, 2022, I got my first live rep with a cup team. I was able to perform well there. And then, that was heading into the off season for next year. And I was able to get a contract and start off with my first race being the Daytona 500.
No way. What was that like? Were you nervous, or were you not even understanding what you were doing? Like almost naive to be nervous.
I think going to the Daytona 500, because I didn't know much about the sport, it was almost like this I didn't know what I didn't know situation. So being there and seeing, I saw the whole atmosphere. I get it, and I was blown away by the spectacle that the Daytona 500 brings. But when I was going out and doing the pit stops for the 500, I was able to compartmentalize it kind of, and I'm sounding really cocky right now, but it wasn't. It was very calm, because to me, it wasn't the Daytona 500, the thing I grew up watching, the biggest. Sport.
Wasn't the Super Bowl.
Yeah, if it was the yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah. So you would have been going nuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was the weird aspect and I say I didn't know what I didn't know, and so that actually gave me an advantage, because I didn't know all the things that could go wrong. I didn't know the stress and the atmosphere that it brought. I was learning it all on the fly. So that actually suppressed a lot of the nerves, I think. I think now more that the car's running fast, the pit stops are getting faster, the margin of error is so small that I would say if not, I'm actually more nervous now than I was then, if that makes any sense.
That's what I was going to ask you. How different is it now, your approach, your mentality, now that you're fully entrenched, you know your job, you understand the business, you have a team that is counting on you every week. This team is competitive. It's running good. It won last year. It's hoping to win again this year. So now give me an idea, because now you do know. There's no you're not ignorant anymore to the business.
Yeah, the ignorance was a bliss from the start. But it is getting back to those things that why was I able to be where I am today? It's because of the lack. You need to have zero to minimal air and be fast, and the pit stops now have evolved more than ever. I mean, I know that people have seen a big change over the past 5 years from 5-lug to single lug, but me personally, since last season to this season, I've seen a huge change, just in the way that the floor has risen. Everyone's running fast pit stops now. It's just about how high the ceiling can go, and that's what's so fun about this sport, is that you realize, yes, it's a 4-tire pit stop, it's single lug, there's very small room for air, but you realize that there's so much to gain on each pit stop. The amount of details from our helmet cams, from overhead footage, you can just diagnose it to the point where you're like, wow, I could get a 10th there, I could get a 10th there.
Yeah.
And you realize a 9-second stop is not going to cut it anymore. If you want to go out first again, you got to be running 8s. You got to be on top of your game and at all times. And you never know what you're going to get on a pit stop.
The naked eye, 9 seconds is lightning quick. So it's amazing to people that, that's slow for a pit stop, but it is. You're right. I mean, it's incredible how it's been competitive, and the single lug certainly has had a massive impact on what happens in the pit boxes. What is it like for you as a guy who's been a team sport guy your entire life? Give me an idea of the element of team with the pit crew, with your 17 guys You're all out there wearing the same uniform, the same fire suit. You have different jobs, but you have to work in unison. You got to do it in 8 seconds. Give me an idea of the teamwork, the camaraderie, and what your relationship is like with your teammates on the pit crew.
Yeah, I would say there's so many similarities to football. The only similarity is like you're on the same team, but you're not on the same team as the six. So that's the only thing that I say wouldn't be that similar. But yeah, I mean, it's such an individualized sport, but also a team sport at the same time, and there's really nothing else like it. I think for today's pit stop, our team's goal is to facilitate the jackman. If you see the jackman never stop moving, that means that we're doing our job. And that's when a fast pit stop's going. Anything that slows up the jackman is going to be a slow pit stop. And that encompasses a lot of what I just said. I mean, that's a very surface level comment, but if you miss a pull, that slows up the jackman. If you miss a hang, that slows up the jackman. If you miss the on, that slows up the jack. So that's kind of the way that we've explained it is don't slow up the jackman. And luckily we have Nick Patterson, the best in the business. He was P1 this past weekend. I'm so lucky to be partnered up with him. I mean, there's no one else like him. He's a specimen. He's a absolute demon when it comes to race day, and I'm very lucky to be partnered up with him.
Do the jack guys have the most pressure, or is it just kind of the correct? Like, give me an idea of which, like, because that guy's got to be like a ballerina, no? With the
that's the other thing. It's a game of finesse with attacking, and you have to know when to attack. You have to know when to finesse. You can't attack a wheel if it's still on the ground, and that's why I trust Nick to get the car up off the ground. So I know that I can pull as soon as possible because Nick has such a fast stop to jack, and I know right as I throw the tire that it's already on, and I better tighten it up, otherwise he's gonna run me over. So the level of pressure for each position is very similar. We're all doing different tasks. At the same time, we're performing the same tasks. It's the choreography, the getting to know each other. Everyone has different tendencies. It's a beautiful sport, honestly. I know not a lot of fans necessarily care. They just want to see the end result. Like, you had a slow pit stop. Oh, you had a fast pit stop. I know that's the general consensus of how the pit stops are viewed, but from within the pit stop culture is awesome. Diagnosing every little bit, seeing how fast you can get, seeing new things that you can improve on. It's such a simple thing that can be drawn out in many different ways.
I bet it is. It is a ballet. It is teamwork. It's aggressive. It's finesse. It's a little bit of everything, and it's happening lightning fast. Lightning fast. So it is. For anybody that watches it, you're just kind of in awe when the car takes out of the pit stall, and you're just like, "Holy hell! How does that happen? And how do you get the fuel in the tank that fast? And these tires on and off?" But it's magic, and it's amazing the amount of work that goes into the magic every week. That's it for this week. Nashville this weekend. Everybody enjoy the race. Brad Keselowski going to be in that number 6 Consumer Cellular. If you're in Nashville at 11 o'clock this weekend on Sunday, you can go ahead and see Brad. He's got a fan-facing Q&A with Consumer Cellular in the fan zone. So check that out. And for the number 17, buildsubmarines.com is on the car, on the hood, and on the fire suits for Jakob Prall and company this weekend. Jakob, great to see you, man. Thanks so much for coming on and being a part of the show.
Thank you, Chris. It was awesome being on. Appreciate it.
Really cool to meet him, a former Saskatchewan Rough Rider wide receiver. I love that. That's going to wrap it up for today. Alec Walt, thank you. Thomas Burfield, Elijah Wood, Kevin Wood, Elijah Wood. That's not his name. Elijah Burke. Elijah Wood's an actor. But Kevin Woods, Brandon Lee, all the studs. We love them. We thank them. That is it. It is Backstretch Banter, RFK Racing, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Thanks for listening.